nerds? Okay, today's lesson, that was a fault. Today's lesson is how to build a major scale. Okay, hey Dr. Benson, I hope you're paying attention because all that stuff I talk about in class, you're going to learn a little bit about it right now. So first we're going to talk about what is a major scale. Now, I'm going to explain to you, who probably don't know anything about music, that a major scale is the combination of any 7 or 8 notes concluding with whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, or major second, minor second, major second, major second, major second, minor second. Now, I know that sounds a little complicated right now, but after we finish the lesson, you're just going to make perfect sense. First, we're going to talk about whole steps, which are also major seconds. Now, I've drawn a keyboard here, and I will explain to you how they work. Now, we're going to build a C major scale. A C major scale has no sharps and no flats in it, so it's going to make this scale pretty easy to learn how to build. On the keyboard, the distance between C to D is a whole step. The distance between C and this black note between C and D is a half step. This is how the formula whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half works. Next, we're going to talk about the half steps. Well, naturally on the keyboard, there are 2 half steps that occur in every scale. In C major, it's between E and F, which is denoted by not having any black or half note keys in between the two, because that's where a minor second naturally occurs inside of the scale. Up here between B and C, or T and Do, is also the same thing. There's no black note, which means there's no half step between them, which means they are a half step between each other. That's the next minor second in the scale. We're going to talk about tendency tones and leading tones. B and C and E and F are 2 leading tones and tendency tones. B to C, as we are in the C major scale, is T to Do. Now, solfege is something we're going to talk about in another lesson, but it's just another reference to make it a little bit easier to explain. So, we have T to Do. B to C, going up the scale, naturally wants to go to C. That's why we call it a leading tone. It leads into the dominant, or the tonic of the chord. Now, we're going to talk about E to F. Probably more so a tendency tone inside the C scale. F always tries to fall to E. This is scale degree 4 to 3 or 5 to Mi. There's a strong pull here, so the notes tend to resolve that way towards each other. So now that we have these half steps, or leading tones and tendency tones figured out, we're going to build a scale. First, we're going to do it with whole steps and half steps, and then we're going to do it with major seconds and minor seconds. Between C and D is our first whole step, or our first major second. Between D and E is our next whole step. Now, note how I'm skipping the black notes in between. We're going whole steps and not half steps. That's very important in this lesson because it's the very basis of building any scale. Now that we are from E to F, where the half step naturally occurs, the formula calls for a half step. So we're going to go from E to F, which is whole, whole, half. Next, we're going to move from F to G, which is a whole step, G to A, and A to B. Here's our final half step between B and C, just like it was in E and F. That's a built scale. Now, you say, is this scale usable for any key that we are in major-wise? Well, of course it is. We're going to move from the C major scale, which has 0 sharps and flats, to D major scale, which has 2 sharps, F sharp and C sharp. Here, we have a whole step between D and E, like we did in the first place. Now, here's the confusing part, and a lot of people don't get this concept, but we're going to explain it today, so hopefully you do understand it. How I just explained, E to F is a half step, E to F sharp is a whole step. Now, you say, that's a little confusing. Why do I go up to another note if E to F? I'll explain it. Look, you see how I talked about earlier, between the 2 notes, the black keys? They're tuned to half steps between keys that have whole steps in between them naturally. So, for this half step to become a whole step, you have to add another half to it. Simple music math. So, E to F sharp is now a whole step. And you say, what happened to the half step? Because there are no more half steps. Well, actually, since the black keys are tuned to half steps between notes, this F sharp to G natural becomes our half step. And so we have D to E, E to F sharp, and F sharp to G as our whole half, or major second, minor second. Now, the rules still apply as the rest of the scale goes. G to A is a whole step or a major second. A to B is a whole step or a major second. Now, the same basis that we just did with E to F sharp is going to be applied to B to C sharp, because here the natural half step occurs and we need to make it a whole step. So B to C sharp is the whole step, the last whole step we need, or the last major second that we need to get to the half step, or the tendency tone, or the minor second to get to our stable note in the key, which is tonic, which is do, which is D. Yes, we built a major scale in two different keys using the same formulas. I hope today's been very helpful for you, and till next time, nerds.